in 3, 2, 1. And for the first time in 33 episodes, we are not live. What's going on, Drew? Welcome on this pre-recorded version of the Framecast.
This is weird because I can't actually look at myself at the same time anymore. I can't see my handsome visage. It's distracting me. I mean, I feel completely derailed in this entire endeavor already. I think we should just give up.
Yeah, thank you so much for watching Framecast 33. We'll see you next week when it's live again.
No.
Psych!
No. Okay.
We're actually talking about a topic today, which took us a while to find because the gaming landscape has been a little bit dry over the past few weeks. I don't know if it's always like January, February that nothing much happens, but the biggest thing that I've really seen people worry about was Ninja tweeting about it's just a game thing. I don't know if you've been following that at all.
To be honest, like I know a bit of it, but even so, that kind of ties into what we're going to talk about anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Let's just get into it then. So, today we're going to be talking about PvP in PVE games, and most importantly, live service PvE games like your favorite Warframe, Destiny 2, and now also Division 2, because another D2 game is entering the space of live service games. Well, actually, it's been around for about a year already, but Division 2 is now at, like, I think $3. You can buy it and get into it. There's a big update coming up in the series. And we're also getting a free weekend of it, but it's pretty interesting to see this game come in at this low of a price point, seeing that last year it releases like a $60 game. But it's a really interesting live service player, which is very much different from Destiny and Warframe. And I
wouldn't say it's too dissimilar from Destiny though, because Destiny came in, it started out at like $60 again, and I mean that was paid for as a product for what 2 years until they left Activision and then became independent, and then it went free to play for the base game. And the first year of expansions, the second year, you still have to buy the Forsaken.
Yeah,
I think it's Forsaken. Yeah, the first expansion, and then the second expansion, which is the Shadow Keep. That again, you still have to pay for. So I wouldn't say this is too dissimilar from Destiny 2.
As a monetary thing, it's not very dissimilar. As a game, it is very different from Warframe and Destiny. I don't know. I don't think you've played Division yet.
I played the first one, but I haven't played the second one. I'm actually trying to find it now on Steam. I don't know if I can actually...
It's actually on Uplay, Division 2.
No, I don't care.
But...
Right now, I don't care.
Okay. But yeah, it's now for $3. They're gonna do a free weekend where you can play it for free for like the upcoming weekend. But honestly, I think Division 2, I've played both. I think Division 2 is way better than Division 1. And the setting is just so much different from Destiny 2 and Warframe that I think it's a very interesting contender to be joining this like live service circle. However, we're not necessarily focused on Destiny 2, Division 2. God dang it. Why did they have to call it a name with a D and then a 2? Why couldn't they not just have called it like someone else? Anyway, the reason why I'm bringing up Division 2 is because I think it brings some interesting perspectives into PvP and how that can be done into a PvE game and whether it should be done at all. Have you, Drew, ever played for a prolonged period of time, with which I mean like a week or two, a PvP part in like Warframe or Destiny?
I played it quite heavily in the Division 1. So for those who don't know, in the Division 1 you had it was like the lower half of Manhattan Island, if memory serves. I know that New York is actually comprised of, I think, 3 islands.
Mhm.
one of which I think is Manhattan. So the Division 1 was the south side of Manhattan Island. And I actually love that environment. I thought it was gorgeous to have
Mhm.
this bleak snowstorm constantly happening. Genuinely thought brilliant shout. But in the middle of the playable area, so effectively you had this block, right?
Yeah.
And the PVE section was like this U shape, and in the middle there was what was called I think it was
Dark
Dark
Zones.
Zone. Yeah, right.
Mhm.
So the Dark Zone was entirely PvP content. Now, my friend, so I know it was Loz and myself. I think a couple of my other friends. We were all playing it, and it was bugged to literal fuck. I hope we passed him. I really do hope we passed him in it. But it was horrific, right? You could see so many people cheating. There was people cheating to the nth degree because you could do things on the PC version that was not possible on the console version, and it would just give you insane advantages. So a lot of the PvP was client side, and
Mhm.
as a result, you could do like everyone runs at the same speed, right?
Yeah.
We saw one person using a hack that allowed them to chase after us and stab everyone.
Wow.
Yeah? We couldn't do any damage to them whatsoever because they were sort of like jumping around all over the place. It was like, did you ever watch Dragon Ball Z as a kid?
Of course. How
Okay.
many
No,
times?
it's a genuine question. Like, I know people that have watched Dragon Ball Kai but they haven't seen Dragon Ball Z. But anyway,
Mhm.
the whole point is that in Dragon Ball Z, the faster you are,
Mhm.
like, the more, like, sharp the movements are and things like it's like all of a sudden you blink and someone's somewhere else, right?
Mhm.
That is literally what was happening. You try to shoot at someone and they were somewhere else. They were always constantly, it looked like they were rubber banding really badly. And, they were able to move faster than we were. And they just literally, they just ran up to us and just stabbed us. And I think that was the last straw. And we decided we're not going to do the PvP side.
Yeah,
Not doable.
I can imagine. So one thing that I wonder about PvP in a PvE game like Division 1, but also in Warframe and Destiny, like with Livid Lion. I remember we talked about how IP addresses are exposed if you're playing Destiny 2 PvP mode, and of course, like there's a giant ass advantage in Warframe's Conclave PvP mode if you host the thing. Why is it that there are so many PvP games out there that get this shit right, where you don't have prevalent hackers and you don't have exposed IP addresses, and you do have like a fair a fair playing ground in response times, but all the PvE games that I've experienced, and I don't know about you, but most of them that I've experienced, I just get it so wrong.
So a lot of the problem comes down to resources.
Mm-hmm.
So games like Overwatch or gosh, what else have we got? To some extent, TF2.
Mm-hmm.
What else are we looking at? Counter-Strike.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously just picking first-person shooters because that was my
Yeah, Call of Duty,
preference, and League of
Battlefield.
Legends.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these games, right? Typically, though you could host a PvP game, right? You could also have servers set up. So people with a spare PC lying around and had a big fat internet connection, they set up a PvP server. Like one of my jobs many moons ago, I set up a Minecraft server on my work PC, and it because I was doing nothing with it. Like the PC
Mm-hmm.
was like this is overkill for what I actually need it for. So I set up a Minecraft server on it. The PC was on 24/7, right? Because it took like 10 to 30 minutes to start up in the morning. I'm like, nah, sod it. I'm just going to leave it on overnight. It barely uses any power consumption. Just going to leave it on. Turn off the monitor. Job done. And it's like, so when you've got dedicated servers, you're fine. Now the problem with games like Warframe, like Destiny 2, like The Division 1, the developers have to save on resources by having the communication done directly with each other. So when we're playing Warframe, you may host and I may join you, right? So it saves the developers having to spend a lot of money to host a server, right? Now, in some website configurations, right? No word of a lie, it's just a website. I'm seeing websites being charged upwards of $2,500 a month.
Wow.
Right? I can't go into much more detail than that, but that's an insane amount of money, right? I'm pretty sure when it comes to video games and things like that, you don't have to worry so much about the storage capacity, but you definitely have to worry about the bandwidth. If the bandwidth isn't there, whoa, you are boned, right? So you have to pay a lot of money to have proper dedicated servers. This is money that Blizzard Entertainment can burn, right? So they actually have proper dedicated servers and things in a server farm. I remember when, I think it was Hurricane Katrina or something like that, one of the big horrible storms over in the States. When it hit, it knocked out the server farm that I think the World of Warcraft servers were on, or it basically broke the connection, and as a result, no one could log into World of Warcraft anymore. I think it took a couple of days to actually get it restored. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. So I think the biggest flaw is the fact that people know that these servers are these PvP matches are being hosted on a single computer, and as a result, they can. People can exploit this and do things like traffic shaping or, the whole rubber banding, cheating, and stuff like this.
But is there any reasonable possible way in which a client-hosted PvP match can function to the same level as a PvP server-hosted match?
So you've got to think about the amount of connections, the amount of traffic you're sending. So say you have a there's I don't know if it's Chinese chess or something. There's a game. No, I'm trying to think of a game. Right, Monopoly. Let's go with Monopoly. Right, this is a good, clear example. Most people know what Monopoly is, right? There are a limited set of functions within Monopoly. All right, you roll a dice, you get a number, and then you can move that many spaces. Right. So say there's yourself, myself, Loz, Joey Zero, Zandy Pants, Sabuchi, and DE Marcus. Right, so we're talking 7 people. Right, you're hosting the game. If I roll the dice, I say to my computer says to Michelle's computer, "Hey Michelle, Drew rolled a 6." Right, then Michelle's computer has to tell Loz's, Joey's, Zandy's, Sabuchi's, and Marcus's that Drew has rolled a 6. Right? That amount of traffic impacts. Curses, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that amount of traffic of you rolling that dice just impacted our Discord server connection, and it broke out.
No, I need to get I'm gonna put 10 o'clock on in the background. I have a problem that if I don't have a video playing on in the background and I'm not doing anything with the computer, my computer will go into screensaver mode and it will just disconnect. Discord is just like, Discord, no, why? Right, sorry. The whole point was that where I give you like one piece of information, you then have to disseminate that piece of information to everyone else. Right? That's the really big important thing. Yeah. So when you're doing a PvP thing, the lag is due to the three-way communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the crux of the problem when it comes to things like exploit, lag, and stuff like this.
So then like the thing that I wonder about then is I can see it totally being totally fine for a online game of Monopoly or online like PvP games where there is time between your turns. I don't think that maybe I'm setting some very competitive field of Age of Empires players, but I think that Age of Empires 2 is a game which I don't know what it runs dedicated servers, but I don't think it would need to, would require to. Because like there isn't that many moves that you can do per second in the sense of how critical it is when it comes to, let's say, Warframe, where having this greater response speed because you're the host really gives you an edge in the fast-paced parkour system where you need to take out your opponent, and it can come down to like a fraction of a second. So why do developers bother, you think, with suboptimal systems like this? Like, I know because of the costs, it is most of the time a really tough choice to rent out service yourself or use service yourself, use dedicated servers, and I think we should get into that in a moment as to whether there's worth into it. But first of all, like, if that is not an option, why do they go ahead? Why do you think that they would go ahead with this system where they know it's going to be plagued with problems like host benefit, like, well, Destiny's IP, IP revealing?
It's just host benefit. It's just host benefit across the board. The problem is, right, there is a demand for PvP in every game, right? The quantity of PvP differs from game to game, right? I mean, that's fairly obvious, right? Now, Warframe's PvP front is quite small. So I'm going to sneeze.
All right.
Sneeze.
Well, it's quite small, you say, compared to other games. Well, Drew starts sneezing.
No, it's not going to happen. No sneeze. It's just going to happen. Like, right, okay. So, the drive in Warframe is really minimal compared to games like Fortnite, where it used.
Would you not think that that is also because if anyone is remotely serious about that PvP mode, they're gonna cast it aside because it's set up in this flawed system. Like, it's set up in a way that the host always has an advantage, and in a system that is practically quite not very useful.
The problem with Warframe is the fact that there's a lot of information that needs to be conveyed, right? And with PvP, you have to be a lot more exact than with PvE. So with PvE, you can bodge things, right? So you can have it so that people's movements are milliseconds out from what actually happened, right? So, you could say half a second or a quarter of a second. But in PvP, that time is vital. If you're shooting at someone and to them they're not there, but to you they are, like, who wins? Right? So you have to have everyone on a level playing ground, which what makes it so difficult. Another big thing of problem for Warframe is its insanely complicated movement system, right? So being able to jump around and things, like with games like Quake 3 Arena or Unreal Tournament 99, there's very limited movement, right? Run, jump, job done, right? But with Warframe, you have bullet jumping, you have double jumping, you have wall climbing, you have wall mounting, or wall latching. You have a lot of different things that you could potentially do. And the more detailed the data, the bigger that data is. Now, you could do the odd thing with Warframe and make it so that, I see what you're doing here. So I don't know if you realized in the relays, every other player is just running. right?
Yeah.
So if they do like, oh, I'm going to do a bullet jump, they just sort of like vertically upright, just go, ah,
Yeah.
as if it was like a horrible, cell animation sort of thing, like, oh, what the hell were they doing there? So what they've done there is very cleverly, they are massively reducing the amount of data they're sending. So all they're telling the other clients is this is the XYZ position of the player, and that's it. So if a player's XYZ position starts to move, we can assume that they're in the running animation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's it. That is literally it. Right? But with PvP, you need to know exactly what they're doing, what way they're facing, what are they aiming down their gun, so on and so forth. Am I making sense?
Yeah. It requires a greater stream of data.
Exactly.
But the thing that I'm wondering about is, like, I can understand the argument for if there isn't a large player base, you cannot, like it would not make reasonable sense to support it with very costly dedicated servers. However, if you bring up Fortnite, I think Fortnite runs on dedicated servers, as far as I'm aware. But like, I don't think that you could have expected a game like Fortnite or a game like Call of Duty or any sort of PvP oriented game to succeed to the point that it did if it wasn't hosted on dedicated servers, because it wouldn't be viable as a competitive product if it has these deep flaws where if you're the host, you have a massive advantage. Or, as you pointed out with Division 1, hacking, like, it opens it up for very easy hacking. Because as you said yourself, like, it deterred you from doing Division 1, like PvP playing.
Yeah.
So, like I can understand the argument that they're saying we can't do dedicated servers because it's not widely supported, but I don't think that then, like, this client hosting thing is ever going to have a chance of succeeding.
So one thing you have to realize when it comes to Fortnite, right? Who makes Fortnite?
Epic Games.
And what else do Epic Games make?
The
I'm going to
Epic
see if you
Games
can guess.
Store.
Nope. They do make that, but that's not what they've been making for the past I don't know how many years.
The Unreal Engine?
The Unreal Engine. How many games to date use the Unreal Engine? Let's have a look, shall we? Let's go on the Wikipedia, shall we?
Yeah,
oh,
I think
this is going to be a strange one.
I think that the precise number, I'm gonna guess. So tell me if it's right. But I think that the precise number is about a fuck ton.
That's okay. Never mind. Hold on. Let's. Oh crap! Mouse. Don't. Like, what, YouTube? Why are you doing this weird pop-up thing? I don't need to do that. Right. Okay. So, let's just look at the Unreal 3 and the Unreal 4. Oh my gee. Whoa.
There probably is going to be some crazy numbers. I don't know how it compares to, like, the market share, but I see a lot of games with Unreal Engine.
I don't even know how to even count this easily. Is there a way I can easily count this? This is an insane number.
All right, well, whatever.
I'm going to say hundreds. I'm just going to say at least 100, if not more.
That makes sense. So yeah, like it has a wide market share implementation.
The whole point is that every single time you sell a game over a certain number of units, right? So, over a certain number of sales, you then start having to pay Epic Games for the right to resell their engine, right? So games like Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, Batman Origin... No, wait. Can't remember. Batman Arkham Origins? Batman Arkham Knight. You know, those games all use the Unreal Engine 3.
So because of its widespread implementations and the royalties that these other games pay towards Epic because of the use of their engine, they have the financial means to support dedicated servers.
Exactly, right? And it's the same with World of Warcraft, right? I think, right, at World of Warcraft's peak, so I want to do some math here. Math, right? At World of Warcraft's peak, they were making, oh my lord, 112 million, sorry, $12.5 million a month.
Nice.
112 million.
So guys, support patreon.com/Xenogalleon. See if we can get him up to 112 million.
But you get my point.
That's
So the whole point
insane.
is, they are sat on that money, right?
Yeah.
They are not able to spend it nearly as fast as they are, making it. So they are able to use that revenue and put it into other titles that need dedicated servers, or need. Diablo 3 certainly did not need a dedicated server.
No, I could see
Right.
that. So like it's a big financial thing. So I think that when it comes to like why PvE games have such shitty like client setups is basically a financial thing for dedicated servers.
You're
Now-
not wrong.
Now, let's put that aside for a second, because like we can't discuss that much further without knowing the revenue streams of these games and the cost of dedicated servers. Because like we can start speculating, like let's say that the dedicated servers would cost this much and their revenue is this much. Like how much more revenue would they need to have in order to, like, we can't do that. That will just go into speculation. So I want to move to a video I recently watched by Sabuchi about how to make Warframe not shit in 2020, where he talked about, I think it was Conclave. That he said, like, I've heard many more people suggest over the past few years that Warframe needs to up its game and improve the PvP side of things. As we just discussed, like a large part of where PvP hinges on is dedicated servers, and the dedicated servers are costing money. So as long as we don't know those figures, we can't really get into that side. But aside from the monetary and dedicated server side, do you think that there are some actual benefits in PvE games like Warframe, like Destiny, and like Division 2 having a solid PvP element to them? Do you think there's any chance of them succeeding, or is it just some weird amalgamation which never really will work out in any scenario?
It depends entirely. I think it also depends on where you want to put the focus and where the community lives. So, for example, when Fortnite first came out, it was a PvE game, and then they introduced the Battle Royale system, and then it just blew up into this PvP monstrosity that all the kids do, and that flossing dance just ruins my Sonic movie.
Oh man.
And,
well, at least it ruined Ninja's New Year, so we can laugh about that.
Okay, moving
Did
on.
you ever see that? Did you ever see that Times Square like world record attempt of people flossing at, like, I think it was some New Year's a couple of years ago?
What?
So basically, what happened?
No, I don't.
No. I'll tell you. So basically, what happened is they had this bright idea to, at Times Square, like, set a world record of most people flossing at the same time. And they brought Ninja out there. Ninja with his red hair, he's coming up. He's like, guys, we're going to do the floss, and we're going to make it a world record attempt of most people flossing at the same time. And then, all right, let's do it. The music starts playing, he starts flossing, and they want to have, like, over 1 million people do it or so. No one did it. Like, literally no one did it. And it's like, he's just standing there like, guys, I'm not seeing enough movement. And then, like, after, like, 30 seconds, they just cut it. It was beautiful.
Oh, that is hilarious. Right. Regardless of that, I also feel that if you were to, like, so one of the things that I really hate about Destiny 2 is it first sets you up to be this huge PVE game, and then ultimately pushes you into PvP. And so in order to get certain pieces of equipment, you have to do PvP, right? There's no choice. It's not, oh, you could do the PvP route, which is half the time, or you could continue down the PvE route. No, it is, you have to do the PvP route. And it's not entertaining at all. And I don't like it. I could barely get on with the Division's Dark Zones PvP, but some people are just not interested in PvP, and some people live for PvP. I don't really know if there is any individuals that truly like PvP, or I don't know if there are anyone that is a middle ground. Right, I don't know if there's anyone that is like, yeah, I'll play PvE today. Oh, I'll play PvP today. Because even in the Warframe side of things, it is just pretty much one or the other.
I think it depends on the type of game. I think you highlighted like two major points where I think there is a problem when it comes to the PvP element in a PvE game. The first thing you said with Fortnite, but also with Destiny 2, is when PvP is added, but then like overshadows the PvE side of things. So Fortnite, the PvP wasn't integrated. It was just an extra battle royale mode that then just kind of took over to survive the zombies thing, and left to survive the zombies thing like kind of in nowhere. And with Destiny 2, even though they kind of exist alongside, you have to do the PvP thing later on down the line in order to get pieces of equipment, which are required later on with, like, if you want to do Destiny raids, if you want to get that equipment within Destiny. So that's one thing where the thing kind of just like replaces or is laid over top the PvE content. And then you mentioned number two, where people may just not like it. Because they really like PvE, and I can find myself within that sentiment a little bit, where I think it really depends on how the game is created and the way you feel about the game, and what you're looking for within the game. So, like, I really enjoy Warframe for the PvE style. I never really enjoyed the PvP style of Warframe, but I do immensely enjoy playing Call of Duty. I do immensely enjoy, like, playing PvP shooters, and I've done some battle royales in the past as well, and I can really enjoy myself for hours on end with them. But the thing that I found with Warframe is whenever I started playing Warframe, it gives you this feeling of like a god sensation of like you kill everything and you
a power fantasy.
Yeah, and you grind for hours and hours and hours on end, and then you, after like years of work, you get like your insanely powerful whatever prime weapon you have, and you go into PvP and it needs to be balanced, and then you get killed by a Mark 1 Breton, and that just really upset me a couple of times, because I'm like, yeah, this doesn't make cognitive sense. That all of a sudden, like, this thing where I slay and I'm 10 times better than, like, the new player is all of a sudden just worse than, like, the Mark 1 Breton. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not liking this. So I think it also very much has to do with, like, the mindset that you are within that game and the way that the PvE and PvP are connected.
I agree. I would like, you're using OBS, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. Take a note of the time right now in the video, right? Just like write it down on something, or just write it in Discord. Just write it in Discord. Just make your life easier. Write it in our Discord chat.
Go ahead. So,
I want you to do a YouTube poll, right, that asks people, and you can work out the wording later. It's the timing that's important. You know, what is their preference for like PvP or PvE? So, like, you know, are they happy to play a game for both the PvP and the PvE, or do they prefer to stick to it? So stick to one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
like, do you
like PvE? Do you like PvE games? Do you like PvP games? Do you like both?
No, see, it needs to be within the one game.
Okay.
Right. So, like, things like League of Legends wouldn't be a valid option. Things like Overwatch would not be a valid option, because there is no PvE side. Things like Diablo 3 wouldn't be an option because there's no PvP side.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are given, if given a choice in a single game to either do PvE or PvP, World of Warcraft would be a prime example.
Mm-hmm.
Which do you prefer?
Yeah, the single one, PvE, PvP, or both.
Or both, right? Yeah. And that's what I'm really interested in knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone that's listening to this, if you could put in the comments below what game that has both that you actually enjoy, right? You know, I voted for PvE. I'm primarily thinking of this game. I voted for PvP. I primarily thought of this game. I like both. I thought of this game. That would be grand. I'd like to see what the results are.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because it's such a different thing as having a PvE standalone game and a PvP standalone game than having like the two things combined into a single game. Because as you say, like, I don't know of many games that have been widely successful for doing both really well. And I think that's one point which is mostly overlooked when it comes to people advocating for better PvP in games. I do like. Let's go over a couple of the points that people say when it comes to like having better PvP in PvE games like Warframe, Destiny, or Division. And like, I think that there are some valid ones in there. Like the most things that they're highlighting is that it creates content for itself, because what you find when it comes to PvP games like Call of Duty, like Fortnite, like, they don't have to introduce content every single week, because the PvP battle creates a different battle, a different scenario, a different setting every single time that you play it. So it kind of keeps on creating itself, which satisfies the player base more than when a player base is solely relying on kind of like new content to come out, which a lot of these PvE live service games are very much plagued with. But I think that point too, which I think Sabuchi brought up in his video, is that if you look at what is most popular on Twitch, if you look at the most popular Twitch games, most of them are PvP. And that is because like PvP is very interesting to watch. If you watch a PvE story game, like the first time that you're watching that, it can be very interesting to watch if you don't know what the story is. But if you've seen the story, it's like, yeah, sure, like you can see it again. But if you watch a grind game, like it's fun to watch someone grind, but it's more gripping if it's like a PvP, like per player versus player, and especially if the levels go up and up and up, then just see people perform at like the edge of their ability to try and like take each other down. Like, it's really gripping to watch. So I think go ahead.
To be honest, like I feel this way with regards to football, to most sports. The PvP side of things allows for the primal bloodthirst we all have within ourselves. Like, you know, look at the times of the Romans, right? They had the Colosseum. They would have fighters fight to the death, right, for the amusement of an audience, right?
Yeah.
So that the audience wasn't going around murdering people, right? I mean, on a wild jump to now, Penn and Teller did a video about, do video games make people inherently violent, right? And they did an interview with a mother that let her kid play first-person shooter games like Call of Duty, and then these lovely, caring Christian family that wouldn't let like the electronic devil into their home, right? And again, this was a single mum and Christian parents, right? So, and it was found that statistically, crime had gone down because when video games became more mainstream, right?
Yeah. Oh my god, I saw such a really interesting graph like 1 or 2 days ago. It was a graph depicting, I think it was US teens, but it could have also been like another area. But it was like teens from the 1990s to right now, and it showed the lines of percentage that used drugs, used alcohol, was smoking weed, was having sexual intercourse, that kind of things, and spending more than 3 hours a day on games and or computers. And over time, you see like the computer graph going up because, of course, like smartphones and social media and games become a bigger and bigger thing, and all the other lines go down. It is so interesting to see. I don't have the graph at hand, but it is insane. You just see like all these things which like they always advocate for like teens to, like, don't do these bad things. You just see them like very sharply go down the moment that like computers and like social media and games shoot up. And I'm not saying that all these things, like all the things on the computer, are a good thing. Like there's a lot to be argued for the effects on social media, which we far from understand at this point in time. But it is really interesting that like it does supply us with an outlet for some primal urges which we for sure have, which is another outlet that doesn't really require us to go into a coliseum to fight to the death. So yeah, I think you're right in that.
So it's the Penn and Teller bullshit series. I'll try and find the episode, and then you can put it in the description. But no, it's. So I think it's really. I think that is what truly captivates the audience with platforms like Twitch. Again, as Sabuchi said, PvP content really makes itself. Right? And I completely appreciate that, because you could go in one match as one character and do amazingly, but in the subsequent matches do horribly. So that's what gets people on the edge of their seats. It's honestly, I don't care. I would rather play the game than actually sit there and watch it. I mean, I don't find it entertaining, unless they're shitposting the entire time. But so I can understand where people think Warframe needs PvP. But for Warframe to get PvP, people need to play it, right? It's like, it's a case of what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Okay, you can't play PvP until there's content to play, right? But at the same time, they're not going to develop PvP unless people are playing it. This is the same argument that I've been going around in circles about, and I appreciate that. Wow, that's boring as hell, but it's true. Right?
I think it's partly true. On the other hand, I mean, I'm trying to. I know that this is a very weak argument given the state that Railjack released in, but like, no one was playing Railjack by the time that they started development like 2 years ago. So they decided to start developing on Railjack, which was a separate system, because they had the idea that this would be something that people well liked. So in order for Railjack to become a thing, people didn't necessarily need to play it because they started building it. Right now, I know that like Railjack isn't quite there yet, so like in order for it to become decent again, people now kind of have to start playing it or they want to develop for it. So that's why I'm kind of like, it's not the greatest argument, but a lot of times, like when it comes to improving things in the game, like yes, mostly they do it based on like what most people do, but at the same time, when they develop new things or when they have an idea behind something that can really work, it's not necessarily a prerequisite in order for developers to develop on something. So
the issue, the comparative difference is like Railjack's development was an investment that arguably paid off, right? People are still talking about it. People are still investing in interest in it. People are still playing it, right? Arcwing was an investment that did not pay off, period, right? And they dropped it. Sometimes they bring it back with improvements like, oh, we're turning it into a travel system, or whatever, right? Or they're embedding it in Railjack. But the difference between what is being developed and what has been dropped, I mean, look at Lunaro, right? They put the time and effort into building Lunaro, right? They put the investment in that. They released it, and no one could play it because the host always had a superior advantage. Too big an advantage, right? Yeah. It's a fun game mode. I really enjoy it, but the host had way too big an advantage.
Yeah, but I like that. That is one of the systems where I definitely feel you cannot expect a player base to jump on that and then like DE to take up and say like, oh, we're gonna now invest in it because it is broken from like the bottom up. Like the game mode works, but like because of the server system and the matchmaking system, there is no matchmaking there, which is horrible. Basically, if you want to, it's a 4 versus 4 kind of like, or 3 versus 3. Two teams with people.
3v3.
3v3. It's kind of like a handball catchy like ice hockey game, but then in space with like a ball that explodes every 30 seconds if you hold it too long, or I don't know how long. It's a really fun concept, but even when we want to do it with the developers themselves, the only way to set up your teams is for 4 people to jump into a squad, then turn on Lunaro, then start a match, then invite the remaining 2 people, then wait for the entire match to finish out so they can get into a new match, swap to the teams that they want to have, and then they can start their match. That's the way that we did it with the developers, which is absolute bananas. It makes no sense.
Well, I mean, again, it wasn't built for that, which is a short sight.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to harden that. It should have been like, it would have been cool if you actually. But another thing that I dislike about some stuff like PvP in Warframe is, gosh, I had it in my brain. It had to do with Lunaro.
Hosted fun.
Yes. No, you said the matchmaking.
Matchmaking.
Like if people are playing the PvP, at least ping test them first, right? See what kind of connection you get, and then, and then establish the connection. Because I know that when I was playing against people in the UK and over in the States, the people in the States had the worst time, right? It just wasn't playable. Whereas the people in the UK, they had a chance of beating. But, and that's, again, another shortcoming for Warframe. The fact that Warframe, you can play anyone, anywhere. But in PvP, that's not what you want. You want to focus down to being as close to each other as possible to reduce the lag.
Yeah, I think that's, again, like a server issue over which we can't really say too much because we've already brought it down to the point where it's like, well, they're expensive, but we do not know how expensive and at what point, like what kind of returns you need to make in order for them to afford it.
Not server, right? The issue is just flat out distance. So if you had, here's the problem, right? You've got players here in the UK and you've got players in East Coast America, right? Where's the middle ground? It's in the bloody ocean. You can't have a server in the middle of the ocean, right? So, you can't make it fair that way. So someone has an advantage. So you either host the server in the States, right? So the States players have the advantage, or you host the servers in Europe and the European players have it, right? There is no way to truly have a fair PvP bout, right? If the servers are so, if the players can be anywhere in the world, right? So matchmaking should really be restricted to your region. You play something like Overwatch, you are in the European region. You play something like, what's the name of the damn game? League of Legends, you are in the European region or EU West, right? You play any PvP game, locks you down to a region only because it reduces the lag.
Yeah. Well, that is a major oversight that they don't include that. But I mean, they probably do it because there's so little. Like there's such a small player base on the Conclave side of things, on the PvP side of things within Warframe. that if you want to fill a lobby with enough players, you're going to have to like scramble about as much everywhere you can.
It's not just that, but you also have to consider the incentivized community being grown within Warframe. I mean, look at us. You know, we're not on the same landmass, right? We're closer to each other than my friends, like, you know, us and Joey, right? You know, again, Warframe and the PVE side of things incentivizes a community, right? Much like World of Warcraft does, right? So when you have the PvP side, the community is not incentivized, right? The community is found first outside of the game, and then you play together. You play with your friends, basically.
Yeah. So I think that it is worth looking at some concepts for what might work when it comes to implementation. I think we've looked at the server issues, which are there, but we don't know the numbers of. I think implementation issues is what we just talked about. I think there is more to it, and like we'll kind of touch on it as we go along, because there's a couple more things where I think that like implementation might work better with different ideas, different inspirations from other games. But a lot of implementation also just comes down to very standard functions of like having a matchmaking lobby, having like a solid way of forming a group, and having like a region-bound system. Even though like I get what you're saying when it comes to like a PvE game, like you're very much encouraged to create a friends list and like team up with your friends regardless of where they're from. Whereas as opposed to like Call of Duty, even though you can get to know people through like the PlayStation Network, mostly like people just jump in, they don't care with who they're in, and they're just like they just blow the rest to pieces. Like there is more than incentivizing for the community, but I think that like it would still make sense for there to be region locking, and only like you can invite people as like friends to your lobby, but then that would be the exception to the rule because you invite friends rather than the rule of people coming around everywhere. So I think though, if I look at different games, I think that there are some inspirations, some ideas which could work very well in a PvP setting, because aside from all the issues we talked about, I think that especially when it comes to PvE games, where we've talked about it recently when it comes to Warframe, that after 7 years and updates have requiring to become bigger and better, there is a thing to be said for finding content which can sustain the player base for a longer period of time, which allows the developer for a longer development period without the player base feeling like a repetitive grind loop. And I think the PvP idea could work well. And one of the things which I've recently been watching, thanks to Daniel the Demon, is Sea of Thieves. Now, I think that you said that you have never played Sea of Thieves before.
No, I never played it.
All right, so Sea of Thieves, the idea is, I haven't played it either, but I've seen a lot of streaming content. So the idea is, I think Sunny's played it as well. Anyway, the idea of Sea of Thieves is that you are a pirate on a ship, and you can take your ship and you can go out to different islands and you can start looting them, and fighting like the skeleton bosses that are there and trying to like get all the loot. And you can do that with I think up to 4 players on your ship. And basically what you do is you go to an island, you set up a ritual, you prepare for like it's kind of like a defense kind of situation. Not quite sure how the game mechanics works, but it's like you got to spend some time defeating some troops, being there, setting the ritual, and then ultimately like defeating the bosses, and then finding the key and opening the loot cave, and then taking all the loot and then bringing it to like a harbor where you can then sell it for money, and then you grow. That's kind of the basic concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so the twist to it, though, is that it's a PvEPP situation. So while you are out there looting an island, another team on another pirate ship can come by with their ship, destroy your pirate ship, just kill you, and take your loot. So you have this element to this thing where you can go out and say, I'm just going to focus on this loot cave, or you can go out and say, we're going to go and take down other ships. Or you play with both. You're like, okay, we're setting this up, but we're hiding all the loot because we've seen another ship which might come around, and then we take them out, and then we take the loot, and then we go home. I think that something like this might be a possible thing for Railjack, because when I was looking at the Sea of Thieves gameplay, it really appealed to me. Where Railjack has far less appeal to me so far, but when I was thinking about it, it's very, very similar, because you're on the ship with 4 people. You have one person steering the ship. You have cannons that you can man. You can like repair the ship if like you're being shot at. You can like hoist out the water if it's flooding, and it's very comparable if you think about these game mechanics to Railjack. However, we don't have a PvP element to Railjack, and I think that like straight up PvP might be a little bit tough, given like the server limitations that we talked about and like how popular just straight up PvP is. But how about like a PvE VP implementation where like you have a PvE element to it, but there's also a PvP side of things to kind of keep every single run kind of interesting. And maybe this would then be like an optional thing where you don't always have to like if you really do not want to have like PvP battles, then like you won't, but like PvP can yield you like a little greater rewards or like fast rewards over time.
So this, I want to make a broad blanket statement here. This is not my understanding of what PvPvE is, right? My understanding of PvPvE is PvP, but through the PvE. So Gravidius Dilemma in Warframe was a clear example of PvPvE. If you can actually engage with other players, that is just flat out PvP, right? There's nothing more to it. It is PvP.
Well,
so if
what you could do is like you don't always have people around, so you could also like most of the time you can also have a situation where you loot an island and you just go back and you have looted that island, but you still have to fight like the boss for it. It's like you're doing a mission, but there is a chance that someone else can come in and like attack you if they're on your server.
Again, it's just PvP, right? So, for example, right, in World of Warcraft, you had PvE servers and PvP servers. In PvE servers, the two factions could not fight each other unless they had the flag for PvP turned on, right? They could choose to do PvP combat or not. In PvP servers, there was no choice. You just had the flag on, right? You can at no point. So if I went to go fight a world boss in World of Warcraft, and then all of a sudden an alliance faction group just comes charging up, they can. They can choose to do that. And that is what is being described here, right? PvPvE, as far as I understand it, has to have the PvP side of it, but it's in between. So it's only doable by the PvE, right? So at no point in time can two players fight each other. And I am all for PvPvE, right? So like if I can do something, say let's break up the Tenno, right? Let's break up all the players so that you belong to the faction of your first what's it called? Focus school. Yeah, focus school. Right. Yeah. Right. So you're in. So I'd be in Vazarin. Right. Who would you be with? Who was the first one you?
I'd say Madarai.
Right. So you'd be with Madarai. So we could do an event. So let's throw on a new world. Let's throw in Deimos. Right. So that's a moon of Mars. Right. And we could say that anyone that holds different nodes, any faction that holds a different node of Deimos is receiving resources on a daily, right? Of anyone that does it. Yeah? So much like the Dark Sector system of yesteryear, right? This is now a PvP side of things. So like it's based on the we called it 2 seconds ago. What was it called? Focus School. Yeah, it's based on the Focus Schools. So if I have a node on Deimos, let's call it Doom. If I have Doom, so if Vazarin have Doom. Anyone that is in Vazarin will get a share of the collected bounty from Doom, right? And what you could do is you could have it so that all of the day's activities, right, earn a treasure trove, right? Yeah. So let's say 1 million Argon crystals are collected, right, on Doom. Yeah. And they will be divided amongst the, I don't know, million of Vazarin players, right? So every Vazarin player gets an Argon crystal. Then based on the activity of Doom, right, you might find that Madurai did the most missions on Doom. So then when the payout goes out, Madurai then get Doom. They then claim Doom. And then it repeats again. And it can be a daily thing, it could be a weekly thing, it could be whatever, right? But the whole point is that it's based on people doing stuff. And that was one of the best things about Gravidius Dilemma, was the fact that based on who you played for, the Grineer or the Corpus, determined who was going to be the winner, right? Were we going to get the Brack or were we going to get the Detron, right? That works. That is what I am for. The problem is the old implementation of the PvPvE, which was the dark sectors, suck because of stupid things like the dark sector muff.
What was the Dark Sector Mafia for those of the listeners that do not understand, that aren't aware, or
do you know? Right, for a start.
I've been around during the time. I've seen the forums.
Right. Okay. Cool. Right. So from what I understand or remember, the Dark Sector Mafia was a group of alliances that worked together to get nodes from the dark sectors, right? So, gosh, I'm trying to put this together piecemeal in my brain. So when you held a node as a alliance, or was it as a clan? It was an alliance, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So when you held a node as an alliance, you could tax the players on the nodes for, like, the amount of the rewards or the credits or whatever, right? Some bright spark thought, you know what we should do? We should organize the alliances so that way, when it comes close to us losing the node, I think Sashura was one of them on Pluto. When we're getting close to losing the node, your alliance and all the other alliances will come together, fight for one of the other alliances, right? So, like, let's say you're going to take over from me, right? So all the alliances, Joey's alliance, Zandy's alliance, Loz's alliance, we're all going to fight for your alliance taking over after me, right? And then when Michelle has control of the node, he can crank up the resource tax to 99%. I think the highest you could get was 90%.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. A group within the community found a way to exploit it, and as such, the system was taken away. So it's like with Hearthstone, for the longest time, you could not do your quests against friends, right? Because all you would need to do is just forfeit a match, and then, I've completed that quest, move on, right? You could cheese it, right? That was the words, and they didn't want that. And likewise, DE didn't want the Alliance Mafia, and so dark sectors went away until they could find a solution. And in all honesty, I don't know what solution they could find that was similar to the old system. I think what I have proposed is probably the better choice.
Well, what I feel is when it comes to like the PvPvE system that you describe, I can see it having a smoother implementation towards PvE games, especially towards players that play these PvE games really for the PvE and really do not give a shit about like the PvP side of things. They would not want to like fight against other players. Then this is the closest that they can come towards the PvE side of things, because like you can fight against PvP because you can fight against other players, but the way to do it is just by fighting AI.
Yeah.
And I think that has its benefits, because you can have like the way that we like nostalgically think about Graffidius. It can have like great effects of like, oh, something's happening in the game, and people can band together and can have a real sense of like fellowship because you're all supporting one side. However, I also feel that it, number one, is very like numbers related. It really depends on like how active this thing is going on with the community. I remember like basically Graffidius never really ended, because like there are still operations going on where you can like fight with the Corpus or with the Grineer to like take over a node, but like the nodes don't really be taken over anymore. It doesn't really have that great of an effect, and the only thing that you can have happen is if the Corpus defeats so many of the Grineer, then the Grineer will do like a thing. They'll launch like a Fomorian to like attack the relays. You have like an event coming up, but no one cares because like they are going on forever, and why bother with them? So I think it's very much zeitgeist related. It's very much related to like how much is it in the community's mind and how many people will join in. But I think number two, it doesn't require as much of the player's skill as it does like the collective time. And I think that for a number of people within like the Warframe community that at least speak up, that's like they say they want this. We don't know if they actually really want this. Same with difficulty. And that's why the poll is really interesting. Let us know really if you like to do like both in one game, PvE or PvP, or completely separate, like one thing or the other thing. Because like that's a really interesting thing which I've never heard anyone talk about before, and can really spice things up. But for the sake of argument, that there are people here in Warframe looking for PvP, their main arguments always are that they want to have a way to test their skills against other players, and they want to have a way, well, the thing which is really entertaining to watch on Twitch is to watch people like use their skills to the utmost to fight the other player. And in this scenario, I don't think you would really have that. So I think it's a great way for like a PvE game to have a little PvP element, but I don't think it's necessarily satisfactory for the people that really want to have this skill-based PvP gameplay. And I think that there is something to say for this type of gameplay, even if it might not be to your particular liking within this game. I can see it work, but I think that implementation is a really important element to it, and that's why I thought that maybe implementing Railjack in the like trying a Railjack version with like a Sea of Thieves idea would maybe smoothen out the transition into PvP, other than what Conclave now does, which is just an entirely different section of Warframe, kind of coded as though it's Warframe, but you have to have entirely new mods. Balance is all over the charts, is completely different, which of course it has to be, but it's really weirdly implemented. Or if you look at like Fortnite, where it's like it's just a separate game placed on top of the original game, which has no relation with the original game at all.
I think that I think that the most interesting element that could exist for Warframe is true PvP, right? As it stands, like effectively what we have now, but better, right? However, I don't think we can jump straight to that. I think that DE need assurances that a system like that could work, and the only way to do that is to say, develop this halfway house for us, we will show you our dedication, and then if you're willing to do the PvP side, we will play the crap out of it. Right? I do think there are tricks and cheats that DE could do to make PvP more viable.
Mhm.
Things like as I described before with the whole relay, when a player's moving in this direction, you can try and work out where they are. I think you can use that to the same effect to work out whether or not someone's bullet jumping, whether or not someone's wall latching. But the concern is that does that open holes of exploitation?
Mm-hmm.
And having a scenario similar to The Division, where that one guy was able to run us down with a knife when everyone should be moving at the same speed,
Mm-hmm.
like, that is worse for the game.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to pick your battles carefully, and without dedicated servers, there's not a whole lot that can be done. Maybe, DE implemented those dedicated servers for players, right? I mean, I wonder how many people know that they can actually have a dedicated server running on their PC.
Right. So
Right?
this is something which Warframe brought up, set up a couple of years ago. I think 2017 or something, where players can set up their computer to run as a dedicated server for PvP through the launcher of the game. However, some of the problems with it were that, there was nothing that you get in return. They had a karma system where they said they would get back to karma, you'll get karma points for the amount of matches that are being run on your server. But they said that they would look at something to reward the karma points, but it's been 3 years or something, 2017, 2020, they've never gone back to that. And it really depended on whether there was a server in your area, and at the same time, because Conclave is such a underused thing, I don't know how many servers are even running, and whether if there are servers running, whether that means that it's one close by to you with players close by to you that you can effectively make use of it. It's something that they tried to do.
I think it can work, right? I genuinely think it can work if they put in more support and facilities. So, I don't know, maybe you could go to the Conclave terminal in your set and it says this many dedicated servers near you. But part of the problem is you can't run a dedicated server and play the game at the same time, right? That's understandable, right? But the problem is, if you're expecting people to run these things off their home PC, and I used to, but the problem was I had to turn it off so frequently when I was rendering a video because it would just chew the machine out, right? I had to turn it off because I wanted to play the game. So I never bothered leaving it on because there was no point.
Yeah, I think that there should also be some sort of way to, it is a service. It's a service that you're asking the community or individual people to offer up their PCs, which they might not be using at that time to run PvP matches on their computers. They're going to have to leave these computers on. They're going to drain power. Now, of course, you can't pay these people because, that would, why do not them rather than rent dedicated servers? But I think that, it would make sense if there was something, even if it just meant credits or something. I think at some point, we've discussed this with Sliverito maybe months ago on a Framecast, but I know I've had a discussion where we talked about maybe what if you can earn platinum for it, but the premium currency, but that would be very easily exploited if there would be a way to get that. I feel
the biggest concern is, right?
Mm-hmm.
When will I host a dedicated server?
If you want to play PvP.
No. I will host a dedicated server when I am not using my PC.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When am I not using my PC?
When you sleep.
When I am asleep. And logistically, when everyone else is asleep.
Yeah.
Right? So you need the dedicated servers during peak times, and the servers are going away. Right? Not many people have multiple machines. Right? I used to have 2 PCs until one of them just died, and I'm like, well, I can't be bothered to maintain a second one. So, I'll just have a Chromecast hooked up to my TV instead. That's cheaper, right? So I only have the one PC.
Mm-hmm.
So when you need a dedicated machine to do the hosting, you don't have one, right? So there are limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, of course. I don't think it's a perfect solution. It's something which might work, but obviously, talking about like the different ways of implementation with like PvP and PvE. I think that for Warframe, like, I'm not all that familiar with the Destiny way the way that Destiny is implemented. I haven't played that much of Destiny PvP. But one thing which I'm really astonished by is, of course, like that there is, if you want to do Warframe PvP, you go up to a terminal and you're just like doing a random matchmaking. Like you click on the thing and then you wait for other people to join. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous even with the system that we have with like client-based like servers. It's like this is a UI element where you should, if you want to do PvP, it should take you to brand new menus. And it's like, what do you want to do? What kind of lobby do you want to do? You click on the lobby and then you can like invite people. You can privatize the lobby. You can public the lobby. But like you should have to be able to invite people in like the groups that the amount of players are going to be playing that PvP in. Like right now, you can only create a squad of 4 people within the regular Warframe gameplay. And if you want to do PvP, you can only invite 4 people and then you have to like jump into this PvP segment, which makes no sense. It's like, why not create a brand new like UI element where you can just like cleanly invite everyone, select your teams, set the match up, and then say start match. Like they don't have that, and I think that that's absolutely horrendous because like that is a bare minimum which I would expect from it. If you want to have a smooth operation of your PvP side of things, I think that integration is a very, very important thing. But moving to something like Division 2 or Division 1, regardless of like the server issues with the host element, which allow people to hack and jump around, how did you like the idea of being able to enter into a zone where you could loot different places, like do different PvE missions where you could get better equipment, but you would run the risk of, if you ran into another player, they could kill you and steal only the loot which you acquired within that session? How do you feel about that?
It's the loot that you currently have on you. So if you've gone and deposited the loot, so what would happen is you would fire a flare. You had to wait a few minutes. A helicopter would drop a line down. You then put the loot on that line, and then it would get taken away. If people stole it before you got it on the line, then that is the loot that you would lose. I was fine with it for the most part, because I was playing with other people. I was playing with friends. I was playing with, people I could talk to about any of what I was experiencing. That, to me, is worth more than going around killing people, killing players. I'm playing with my chair and bring it up. There we go. So had I just played on my own, just doing the PvP, I would have stopped. I'd have given up. I don't like it. I am not a fan of it. I am a PvE player because I enjoy either killing hordes of dudes or just taking my methodical time. The difficulty, one of the difficulties I have with PvP is the sheer rage that a lot of my friends get when we lose. Like when I play PvP, It's just a game, right? When I play Monster Hunter World, like, I'll talk to Joe, I'm playing with Joe. I will flip my literal shit when playing Monster Hunter World because I am, it's a huge unknown of how you're performing against this monster.
Mm-hmm.
But PvP, it's just a game. You can't control everything. If you lose, you lose. It's not the end of the world. I don't certainly can subscribe to this whole you lose twice bullshit. But yeah, I'm not a fan of PvP. I will not do it by myself.
I can see that. I think it's a mentality thing. I can understand your point of view. I think that it's like I can also very well understand the mentality of a PvP player. Like I personally really enjoy battle royales as well, or Call of Duty. I remember the very first time that I got in Modern Warfare 2, I got my tactical nuke. Like that is a really cool thing to be working up towards. Which basically meant like a tactical nuke was like get a 25 kill streak. So that's something which you're like working up towards, and every time you go into a match, you can learn the maps better, and you're refining your equipment to like get better and better and better, and then ultimately you get that one match, and then you get everything right, and then you like flip the switch, and like you end the game because it destroys everything, but you win, and it's like. I really, really like that for like I really, really like the PvP side for like trying to get better every single time and trying to like one up real people that are on the other side. And it has a little it has a little something to it. Then again, I can also really appreciate when it comes to what you're saying with playing with friends, and especially when it comes to people really raging on things. People can get pretty mad about losing, and like part of it is like, if you want to win, you're going to lose, and it's just a game. I do have to say towards that comment, if it is something that like, let me explain a little bit more. Ninja tweeted out like, you're never allowed to like, don't ever say it's just a game because that's such a bad mentality. You like it's not just a battle you lose because it's about self-improvement. You should always improve yourself. You don't like marginalize it. And part of it's like, dude, it's just a game. I've felt that with every single craft that I've seen people do whenever it comes to like endeavors of athleticism, whenever it comes to endeavors of like creative endeavors, whenever I've seen people master certain skills, the more mastery they get, the more like humble they get in the things that they do. And also the more like they don't care. It's like not that they don't care, but like if you play against like one of the top like the top level players of I don't know whatever game it is, and they'll lose to you, like it's like whatever. Sometimes they might even let you win. It's just like your parents would let you win with whatever games you were playing with them, because of course they could beat you, but what's the fun in that? So like sometimes you lose. It's oftentimes when you need to prove yourself that you're very adamant on winning, and if you lose, how bad is that? That being said, I can also see that whenever you grow up and you really want to be this Fortnite player, or you are to be like the best in the world, and if you lose, you'll lose standing, you lose income, then the game that you're playing is not the same game as like someone that's playing that just wants to play a game and that doesn't really care much about that. So in that regard, I can understand it, but that doesn't mean that everyone has to go by the same token of you can never say it's just a game, because seriously, dude, it's just a game.
But a large part of the problem is with this mentality, it's always like, oh, I want to become the next Tiger Woods. Actually, I should have picked someone. I want to be the next celebrity football player. Do you know any football players?
American football? No.
Well, no, even English football. Like, insert sports human here. Like, you can't do that as a standing occupation, right? Your body cannot maintain that level of physical endurance for that long a time.
But
right?
But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be something to strive for. I
No,
believe
I'm not saying.
I believe that there are many ideals which people are trying to achieve, but probably never will.
But my point is, right? If you become the next star football player that everyone fucking likes, you're only going to be doing it for a fraction of your life, right? You can't do it the entirety of your life. You will not physically be able to. You'll burn through the cartilage in your knees so much faster. You'll burn through you could develop injuries and back problems, and you just can't play anymore, right? Putting all your eggs in this is one thing that I cannot comprehend with the whole I'll do this sport, get a scholarship, and go to college, and then get scouted by, a football manager or whatever. What happens if that doesn't work? You've not developed your mental faculties. You can't do basic skills that most people, and you're stuck at a desk in a call center.
Well, that is why it's called a high risk, high return strategy. And it's walking the very fine line of doing something which is really, really brave and admirable, and something which is really, really stupid. And I think that the perfect way to describe this very fine line is to look at let's say look at the success stories of someone like PewDiePie or Mr. Beast, where PewDiePie dropped out of university for a year and then got to be the biggest YouTuber in the world right now, and Mr. Beast that never went to college and did YouTube for 7 years and then all of a sudden blew out with his channel and is now earning millions. Those are the success stories, but then you can also go to Dr. Phil and find people that believe they're influencers, and they'll destroy everything around them because they think that they are the next talent. And you'll see that no, you're not. You're kind of delusional. And it's a very fine line. And most of the time, if you want to achieve something which is very out of the ordinary, you will have to do something which is very out of the ordinary. And there might something might happen which will completely obliterate the path that you pursue it. So if it generally doesn't make a lot of sense for people to try. But that's the reason why some people try to do it anyway, because they don't like to do the thing that is the ordinary pathway. They like to do something which is a little bit more adventurous, which is a little bit more leading into the chaos of the risk of the unlaid path, and hope that they might be able to achieve a really, really good position. And it might fail, and then it fails. But some people really like to do that.
I think that it really... God, how do I say this? I don't think doing stuff on Twitch, PvP games, or anything like that is nearly as high risk as... or maybe in other ways it is. Maybe in other ways it is high risk.
No, it is entirely. I would say that if you are out to become a professional soccer player or athlete or whatever, you will spend a lot of time into training and practicing, which can definitely set you back on a educational level, on a general real world experience outside of the sports level, but it will keep you in pretty decent condition, physical condition, and you'll be training a lot with, or you'll be interacting a lot with people around you. So social skills. I can say, I can speak from experience with 20 hours a week training from by the time that I was 13 till 20. I got to know so many people. My social skills increased so much for doing that. But when it comes to Twitch, you do not have necessarily the same things. But let's say that you want to be a Twitch streamer, and what a lot of Twitch streamers do, they stream 10 to 14 hours a day. You're going to be inside playing games for 10 to 14 hours a day, like it's going to have a major impact on like your physical activity, on the amount of times you spend inside, on like the amount of like things you do outside of it. Like it has on your social life, it will have a major impact on that. So if you don't succeed in there and you can continue going on, like you will find like very big outliers of people that completely went off the wrong end, and like it looks miserable. But you'll have that with most things, but like it definitely has risk, real big risk as well.
It's interesting because, like, you know, one of the bigger Twitch streamers that I remember, he was from the first, oh God, TennoCon, was Pokey Panda Bear. And now he's uploading, so he's on Twitch so infrequently, right? Like he hasn't been on Twitch in like 20 days, right? I don't know if the view count thing is broken, but I went back through his past streams and it says like so many of his streams got 0 views and things like that, and I'm like, what, seriously? Like if I go to Joey, just wanna, how can I go? Can you take me to his channel, please? Go to what's this? What do you send? Slightly.
So, well, I can see that happening because Twitch is a very time sensitive medium. Like I remember a statement from Ninja back in the day when he still did Twitch that if he didn't stream for 2 days for 48 hours, he would lose $40,000 in revenue.
Right. So that thing that I was talking about, the whole views thing, it only shows the views of who watched the stream after the stream had happened.
Yeah, most people won't do that. But yeah. Anyway, like I can see the drop off and the drop off in views, and I think it's like it's a very real thing for Twitch streamers, also for YouTubers. I know that I might do well with like I might do myself a favor if I were to take a little break sooner. But I'm really scared what that will do when it comes to views, which aren't the greatest at this time. But like what I can definitely see with someone that's like, when you're mentioning someone that like 4 years ago in 2016, the very first TennoCon was like one of the bigger Twitch streamers. In 4 years, a lot of things can happen. Like I remember I did last year, I did a year of Twitch where I did 6 to 8 hours of streaming a day. And I remember like doing that for like half a year or so. And then I had to go outside, like go to the shops a little further away, and I was on my bike, and it was like nice weather, and like the sun was out, and it was blue skies, and I was just like, "What the fuck am I doing with my life?" Like it's really fun and all to like sit and talk to people online and like play games, but like I just really missed going outside when it was light. I really missed like doing other things. And I can definitely imagine when it comes to Twitch, where it's really hard to diversify outside of just playing games or like being inside right in front of a camera, that is being live with an internet connection. Like you can't really do things outside as much as like you can with YouTube videos. So that like instigated me to do less time on Twitch streaming and focus more on YouTube videos.
Yeah, I just had a look at his statistics, and they're a lot lower. I mean, like heck, whenever we did the Framecast live, we would get much higher statistics than he did. So, or does. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But you can't put all your eggs in one basket. I mean, what happens if it fails? What happens if it falls through?
Well,
you know,
like obviously there are safer bets in life, but like most choices that you make are based on a certain bet. So it just depends on like what is the risk that you want to take, and how far what are you prepared to do. I think that like, you know, you only have one body that you live in. So like, why do you put all your eggs in one basket? Why do you live in one body? Why are you not like an octopus that can just lose a limb and then grow it back on again?
I don't think you know why they lose that limb, but let's move on.
Well, it's like it's pretty much
No, I do mean move on. Like let's not worry too much about the whole octopus thing.
Really. Do you not want to talk about animals? Actually, yeah, that we've kind of strayed far from the original subject, which was PvP and PvE games. Oh boy.
Okay. I think it is doable. I think it is viable, but I think with games like Warframe, like you have to show that there is an environment for both.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't do that without incentive.
Yeah, I think that there's probably three elements which are really important in the way that they're met. Number one is the implementation of it, where like I would feel if you look at Fortnite, like there is no implementation between the PvE and PvP side of things. Like they're just two separate games which are just connected together under the same name. And like one is hugely more popular. So like it's not really connected together. So if you really want to have a true PvP experience within a PvE game, which feels somewhat connected, like you got to implement it in a way that makes sense. I think that point two would be the sensation of similarity. I don't know. Like one of my major points with Warframe is that like the PvP just feels really weird coming from like a PvE player. Like if you go from the PvE to the PvP, it just feels so weird because like all your weapons are way different. It's like,
But they have to be. You have to admit that.
yeah, like they have to be, but I'd rather have that like that you wouldn't have mods on your weapons within Warframe or within Conclave, and that Conclave would just be like, hey, here are your classes and here are your weapons that you can pick, rather than allowing me to take out my prime ultimate weapon and then having that be less less powerful than like a Mark 1 Bratton. Like that just feels so weird and wrong. If you start out for the very first time, you're like, oh, let's do this, and it's like it feels so weird because like it's in this exact same environment, yet the things that you have accustomed yourself to just make no sense anymore. And I think that might be a big barrier of entry to players, at least to me. And I think that the third thing is the way that it is required, or like the required implementation set of things. Like what you said with Destiny 2 is like you can only get these rewards from doing the PvP thing. I think that if you really want to implement it well within the PvE structure, you're gonna have to have rewards you can only get for the PvP. Well, that you can get for the PvP side of things, because otherwise it becomes Arcwing, where all the rewards in Arcwing you can just get somewhere else. So why bother doing it? But you should be able to get it through PvE. It just takes longer because I know that there will always be players that really will not want to do PvP. And yeah, I can understand them as well.
I think the most valid point for the whole thing is that it's important everyone feel that there is equality across the whole board.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everyone must feel that what they are doing is the same, right? Everyone, the only thing that is different is this level of skill,
Mm-hmm.
right? And without that, people will always complain that, oh, it's unfair because of lag. Oh, it's unfair because they got better equipment. Oh, it's unfair because I can't play Grendel. Oh, it's unfair because so-and-so said so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, like, I'm really curious to see what you guys think about, like, if you play a game, PvE and PvP game, whether you do both, whether you only do one, or whether you only do the other. Because that is an argument which I haven't seen a lot. Like, that's a point which I've never really heard before when it comes to this entire PvP and PvE thing. I believe that with the live services, as I've said before, live services are entering a very interesting era. Aside from Division 2 coming into kind of into this playing field of Destiny 2 and Warframe, But even more so, what I think is more interesting is like with these live services like Warframe and Destiny 2 running for quite a long time, running into these issues where right now things have to be bigger and better and therefore take longer time to create, and therefore like having people that are like struggling to persist playing over these longer content routes. Like I think that there could be a way of PvP to bring content to these times without having like content drops, but it needs to be done well with servers. And is it worth investing in servers if there is like an interest in it? And there are so many benefits and so many drawbacks that people have brought on during these discussions. But I think that like the entire idea of like, do these two modes work together in a single game is something which I'm really curious about, like the people that are listening, what your opinion is on that. Because I think that's really crucial. Like PvP really works well. Yeah, we have some really successful PvP titles, but they work because they're PvP titles. And we have some really successful PvE titles, and they work because they're PvE titles. So could they work together? I don't know. And maybe if there are some interesting results out of the comments, we might get like a PvP advocate or a PvP expert on in some other Framecast if we want to follow up on this topic, because like we're kind of miss someone that's really like in favor of these things and does a lot of conclave, because I don't think both of us have done that much. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I would say we round it up. How about you?
Yep. Yeah, let's round it up.
Yeah. So normally we'd go to questions, but we don't have a live audience to ask us questions right now. Yeah. Do you have any
Feel free to leave your questions in the comments below.
Yeah, we'll do that. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below here on YouTube, and we'll read out questions next time. It can be about anything, and we'll go to the community responses. Actually, how about we have Laws pre-record him reading the community responses, and then we'll play that.
I'm sure you'd love that.
Anyway, yeah. How do you like the very first pre-recorded Framecast?
Are we talking to me or the audience?
You.
I was fine with it because it meant I get to eat food beforehand.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'll be happy with it too, hopefully, because I can now adjust the audio levels to be equal to each other and not me being super silent and Drew being super loud.
Cool.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week on Wednesdays. This show now comes out. And yeah, let us know in the comments down below about like the topic at hand, and also tell us how you liked this format, pre-recorded. Anyway, see you guys around.